Toy-polloi, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a toy restorer who does not exist. Toy-polloi, a young loner on a crusade to champion the cause of the broken, the helpless, the powerless, in a world of collectors who operate above the law.
Welcome to Toy-polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of Lego destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now probably the question I get asked the most is about how to make a replacement R2-D2 pop-up Sensorscope like you would have got in this version of R2-D2. You can see he has a little Sensorscope that pops up on the top of his head. You can also push it in to the little hole there, and it sort of lies flush with the top of his dome. Now quite often when you're collecting these figures you'll find them like this guy here, which has the Sensorscope missing, and I've yet to find anyone who actually makes replacements of these, although I'm sure someone could do, because it's a fairly easy thing to make. But I thought today I'd make my own version of the Sensorscope so that this little droid didn't look so odd having a hole in the top of its head. So let's get on to how I'm going to make this replacement little Sensorscope. So here I have a Sensorscope from inside of R2-D2, and as you can see it's a little cylinder of plastic with a little tab on the top. Obviously there's a bit where you can get your thumb under to pull the Sensorscope out, and then a little clip on the bottom. So we're going to try and make something that sort of recreates this, and that will at least sort of look reasonable once it's sort of plugged into the top of R2-D2. So what we're going to use is the classic fix item for toy-polloi, and that is Lego. And I've picked these Lego aerials or antennas up. They're pretty easy to get. I don't even think these are original Legos. I think these are sort of knockoff bits of Lego, because they seem slightly different, but they're very cheap. I think I bought 8 of these for £1.50, and they will certainly do the job for what we need. Obviously the colour is slightly different, but it's a good enough blue, and I think by the time we sort of shaped it into something and put it in the top of the R2-D2 it will look pretty nice. So let's get on and start shaping this bit of Lego and see what we can make out of it, see if we can make a little Sensorscope that does the job. Now Lego pieces come in standard sizes, and the diameter of this is about 3mm, but unfortunately the hole in the top of R2's head is slightly smaller. Now I could just drill out the hole there so this peg would fit in, but I don't really want to do that, because at some point I may find an original Sensorscope and be able to slot it in. So we're actually going to modify this piece of Lego, and the only way to do that is to get a file, and I'm going to file around the sort of main cylinder section of the aerial and thin it down. It just needs to be thinned a little bit, just enough to fit in that hole. I'm not going to touch the top piece at the moment, it's just going to be the stem part of it. So let's get filing until I've got this thin enough that it will fit in the top of this R2 unit. Now the trick with this is to sort of roll the piece of Lego as you're filing, and you'll be able to file all the way round. Now I'm going to file about 2 centimetres worth of the sort of main peg, so that it's we've got quite a lot of area to work with. After a few minutes filing I've ended up with this. I've actually chopped off one end of it because I don't need to file the whole length of it, but you can see I've filed that down, and the main sort of body of it is a little bit thinner, and it now should be thin enough that we can push this into the hole on R2's head, and you can see there's the basis of a new antenna already sort of starting to work. You could in fact just leave it like this and stick some extra bits of Lego on it if you wanted to do something sort of silly with it, but we're going to carry on shaping this top piece until it looks a little bit more like the original antenna. To shape the top I'm now going to use a pair of plastic nippers. These are tools that I've shown you before, and they're incredibly useful for dealing with bits of plastic like this. And I'm just going to start sort of by taking off this top rim of the Lego, because we don't need that. We just want to work with the sort of mid-sized section in the middle. So I can just go along the edges and chop this off. Like so. Then you can see we've still got a little sort of dimple in the middle, so I'm going to try and cut that quite flat, again with the plastic nippers. More like that. Now if we look at the top of R2 you can see that it's a sort of wedge shape that we need, so again I can just sort of trim off a couple of angles to make this look a little bit more wedge shaped. So I'm going to just hold it about like that. If I bring in R2 as a sort of guide, we can see which way we need to trim the other one to make a wedge. So we've now got an almost little sort of triangular piece there. We could do a little test fit at this point. Put this into R2's head. You can see that's starting to look almost the right shape. So what we've got to do now is file down that top piece, because it wants to be a little bit sort of more angled towards the dome. So with the sort of point of the little wedge pointing inwards, we're going to file that down. But obviously I'm going to take this out of R2 because I don't want to damage the chrome anymore. So we can pull that out. So as I said, it's going to be the point of the wedge inwards, and then I'm going to slightly file this down. And we'll see how that looks. So after a bit more filing, you can see that I've ended up with a sort of taper to the top of it. We've still got the wedge shape, but it now sort of tapers inwards. So let's try that as a test fit back into the R2-D2 that I have here, and we'll see how that works. So that pushes in pretty nicely. You can see that's not actually a bad fit, and now I can still get my thumb under there to pull the Sensorscope up. So I'm just going to do a little bit sort of more fine tuning, just some final little bits of sanding, and then I'll show you the final result. And here's my little R2-D2 with his replacement Sensorscope. As you can see, it's not a perfect match, but it certainly does the job and actually makes him look quite sort of like he's complete. And you can still push the little sensor in and it fits in the hole quite nicely. And if I just put my fingernail under, you can also pull it out. And I've left the peg quite long, so you can pull it out a long way if you wanted a sort of extra taller Sensorscope. And you could even just stick a lightsaber in there as well. That would look quite good. And if we compare it to the original, you can see it's clearly a different shape and different colour, but it's only a piece of Lego, so it's never going to be a perfect match. But I'm really quite happy with how that looks, and it's certainly not a bad effect. It gives quite a good result there. So as you can see, just some bits of Lego that are very easy to find. You can make something that does a reasonable job at representing the Sensorscope. Now I obviously hope that at some point someone's going to make a reproduction of these, because it seems quite a simple thing to do. So if anyone knows of anyone making them, drop me a line. But in the meantime, I'm going to stick with my little Lego Sensorscope because it just looks pretty good there, and it certainly makes R2-D2 look a little bit more complete. So I hope that video has been of interest to you, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.